Cinema is a massive world filled with all kinds of stories, but every once in a while, a movie comes along that does not rely on big explosions, loud drama, or fast-paced action to grab your attention. Instead, it moves as slow as a quiet afternoon, gently pulling you into its world until you can feel every bit of emotion experienced by the people on screen. A truly beautiful, deeply moving, and visually stunning piece of art that fits this description perfectly is the year 2000 romance drama titled, In the Mood for Love. This film is a brilliant international collaboration co-produced between Hong Kong and France, and it tells a heartbreakingly beautiful story about loneliness, friendship, and a deep, aching love that cannot be fulfilled. The plot follows two neighbors who slowly discover that their respective partners are having an affair with each other. As they spend time together trying to understand their shared pain, they unexpectedly fall in love, yet they refuse to cross the line or break their marriage vows. Today, we are going to dive deep into this movie, discussing its complete storyline, its beautiful artistic choices, and all its strengths and weaknesses. We will talk about it in a very simple, relaxed, conversational style, just like two friends sitting together on a comfortable couch, sharing their love for good old cinema. To really understand the magic of this film, we have to start with the setting and the two main people who carry the whole story on their shoulders. The movie takes us back to the year 1962 in Hong Kong. The city at that time feels crowded, busy, and full of old-school charm. The story begins on a specific day when two different married couples are moving into a crowded apartment building at the exact same time. The rooms are tiny, the hallways are narrow, and the neighbors live very close to each other, sharing almost everything from kitchen spaces to daily gossip. One of the new residents is a man named Chow Mo Wan, who works as a journalist for a local newspaper and writes stories. He moves into a rented room with his wife. At the very same moment, a beautiful woman named Su Li Jen, who works as a secretary for a shipping company, moves into the room right next door with her husband. From the very beginning, the movie establishes a strong sense of isolation even though these people are living in a crowded building. Chow's wife works a lot, often taking night shifts or staying out late, so she is rarely seen at home. On the other hand, Su's husband works for a foreign company and is constantly traveling to Japan for business trips, leaving his wife alone for weeks at a time. Because of their partners' busy schedules, both Chow and Su spend most of their evenings completely by themselves in their small rooms, eating simple meals or staring out the window into the rainy streets of Hong Kong. At first, their relationship is just like any other ordinary neighbors. Whenever they cross paths on the narrow, dark staircase or pass each other in the shared corridor, they simply nod, smile politely, exchange formal greetings, and continue on their way. Su often walks down the street with a thermos to buy noodles from a local food stall for her dinner, and Chow does the same thing. They pass each other in the dim light of the alleyways, their eyes meeting for just a second before they look away. These moments are quiet, but you can already feel a shared sense of loneliness between them. As time goes on, small doubts begin to creep into both of their minds. Su notices that her husband brought her a very unique and fashionable handbag from one of his trips to Japan. A few days later, she spots Chow's wife carrying the exact same handbag in the hallway. This feels strange to her because that specific handbag is not easily available in Hong Kong. Around the same time, Chow notices a unique tie that his wife gifted him. Later, when he meets Su's husband, he sees that the man is wearing the exact same tie. Chow knows that his wife bought that tie during one of her mysterious outings. These tiny clues start to add up, creating a heavy cloud of suspicion. One afternoon, Chow decides to invite Su out to a quiet restaurant for a chat. They sit opposite each other at a small table, feeling a bit awkward. As they talk about their lives, they finally bring up the handbag and the tie. It is a painful, quiet moment of realization. They do not shout, they do not cry out loud, but their faces show a deep, crushing sorrow. They both accept the undeniable truth that their spouses are cheating on them, and that their partners are actually together. Instead of confronting their partners or creating a massive public scene, Chow and Sue choose to deal with their pain in a very unusual way. They begin to meet regularly in secret, not to start their own romance, but to try and understand how their partner's affair began in the first place. They start a strange sort of role-play game. They sit together in quiet rooms or walk down dark streets, pretending to be their cheating spouses. Chow acts like Su's husband, and Sue acts like Chow's wife. They recreate imaginary conversations, trying to figure out who made the first move, what they said to each other, and how the betrayal started. This shared secret brings them incredibly close. They become each other's only escape from the harsh reality of their empty homes. Chow, who always wanted to be a writer, confesses to Sue that he wants to write a martial arts web novel. Sue encourages him to pursue his passion, and they decide to collaborate on the story. To avoid the prying eyes of their gossiping landladies and neighbors, Chow rents a separate room in a hotel, room number 2046. Sue begins visiting him there, and they spend hours reading, writing, and talking about their deepest thoughts. Working together in that small hotel room, surrounded by red curtains and the smell of old paper, something shifts between them. The fake romance they were practicing starts to feel very real. Without even realizing it, they fall deeply, intensely in love with each other. Every look they exchange, every time their hands accidentally brush against one another, the air becomes heavy with unspoken desire. They find the happiness, comfort, and emotional connection with each other that their actual marriages never gave them. However, despite the immense love they feel, they refuse to take the final step. They are bound by a strict moral code and a deep sense of dignity. Whenever the temptation gets too strong, one of them will always stop and say that they cannot do what their partners did. They constantly remind themselves that they will never be like them. They refuse to give in to their desires because they want to keep their love pure and untainted by the ugliness of an affair. They choose to suffer the pain of restraint rather than live with the guilt of betrayal. The emotional weight of this unspoken love becomes too heavy to bear. Chow realizes that as long as he stays in Hong Kong, he will never be able to move on, and the pain of being so close to Sue without being able to hold her will eventually destroy him. He gets a job offer to work for a newspaper in Singapore and decides to leave the city behind. Before leaving, he calls Sue and asks her if she would come with him if he had an extra ticket. Sue is torn between her love for him and her duty to her marriage. She hesitates, arriving at the hotel room just a little too late. Chow has already packed his bags and left for the airport. The story then jumps forward in time, showing us the bitter aftermath of this unfinished romance. A year later, Sue travels to Singapore and visits Chow's empty apartment while he is away at work. She sits on his chair, smokes one of his cigarettes, and leaves a small trace of her presence, but she chooses to leave without meeting him, keeping their separation absolute. Years later, in 1966, both of them return to the old Hong Kong apartment building at different times. The old neighbors have moved away, the rooms look different, and though they are physically just a wall apart for a brief moment, they miss each other completely, never realizing how close they came to a reunion. The final scene of the movie takes us all the way to Cambodia, where Chow is working as a reporter covering a royal visit. He visits the ancient, grand ruins of a temple. Surrounded by giant stone faces and overgrown trees, Chow walks up to a small, hollow hole in one of the ancient stone walls. He leans in close and whispers all his secrets, his deep sorrows, and his eternal love for Sue into that tiny space. He then takes a handful of dirt and grass, plugging the hole completely. He buries his memories forever in the heart of the ancient temple, leaving his beautiful, tragic past behind as he walks away into the sunlight. Now that we have gone through this incredible and moving journey, let us talk about the merits, or the things that make this movie an absolute masterpiece of global cinema. Masterful visual storytelling. The biggest strength of this film is how it looks and feels. The director, Wong Kar-wai, does not use words to tell you what the characters are feeling. He uses colors, lights, and shadows. The movie is packed with deep reds, warm yellows, and moody greens that create an incredibly romantic yet melancholic atmosphere. The framing is genius. The camera often looks at the characters through windows, mirrors, or narrow doorways, making the audience feel like they are eavesdropping on a very private, fragile moment. It perfectly captures the suffocating nature of society and the tightness of their secret world. Incredible chemistry and acting. Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung give performances that are nothing short of legendary. Acting without speaking many lines is one of the hardest things to do, but these two manage to convey a mountain of emotion just through their eyes, the posture of their bodies, and the way they breathe. When Maggie Cheung walks down the stairs in her beautiful, high-collared traditional dresses, her sadness is palpable. When Tony Leung looks at her with a mix of intense longing and deep respect, you can feel the ache in his heart. Their chemistry is so electric that even a simple scene of them sharing an umbrella in the pouring rain feels more intense than any modern romantic scene. Unforgettable soundtrack. The music in this film is like a third main character. The main theme, a beautiful and haunting waltz played on strings, repeats throughout the movie whenever the characters are walking past each other or sharing a quiet moment. It creates a rhythmic, dreamlike flow that sucks you right into the mood of the film. Along with the melancholic string music, the use of classic songs adds a layer of nostalgia and cross-cultural beauty that fits the Hong Kong-France co-production perfectly. The music stays with you long after the credits roll. A unique take on romance. Most romance movies are about people fighting against the world to be together, but this film is about two people fighting against their own desires to maintain their dignity. It shows a very mature, selfless, and pure form of love. The movie honors the beauty of restraint. It proves that sometimes, an unfinished, unfulfilled love story can be far more beautiful, poetic, and memorable than a typical happy ending where everything gets resolved perfectly. While the movie is celebrated worldwide as a work of art, it does have a few demerits or weaknesses that might make it a difficult watch for certain types of viewers. Extremely slow pace. The film is an absolute slow burn. It takes its sweet time to move from one point to another. There are many long sequences where nothing active happens. Characters just stare out of windows, walk down alleys in slow motion, or sit in silence. For viewers who prefer fast-paced storytelling, lots of dialogue, or sudden plot twists, this movie can feel quite boring, repetitive, or overly artistic. It requires a lot of patience to appreciate its quiet beauty. Ambiguous and open ending. The story does not give you a clean, satisfying resolution. It leaves a lot of questions unanswered, and the ultimate fate of their relationship is left up to the imagination of the viewer. People who love traditional storytelling with a clear sense of closure might find the ending a bit frustrating or depressing, as it focuses more on the feeling of loss rather than giving the characters a second chance. Hidden details. The director leaves out a lot of mainstream context. We never actually see the faces of the cheating spouses. We only hear their voices or see them from behind. While this is a clever artistic choice to keep the focus entirely on Chow and Sue, it can occasionally feel a bit confusing or detached for a casual viewer who wants to understand the full dynamic of the betrayal. When you look at the big picture, In the Mood for Love is a timeless classic that redefines how a love story can be told on the big screen. It is a cinematic poem about the people we meet at the wrong time, the words we leave unspoken, and the memories we carry silently in our hearts forever. It balances the high-fashion elegance of 1960s Hong Kong with the deep, universal human emotion of longing. If you are in the mood for a film that is visually breathtaking, deeply emotional, and will leave you with a sweet, lingering ache for true love, this masterpiece is something you should absolutely experience. It remains a shining example of how cinema can capture the quietest whispers of the human soul.